Inside the smoldering remains of a burnt-out home, they would find the remains of 2 bodies. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Danny Vine and Della Thornton. Viewer discretion is advised. Danny King Vine was born on December 24th, 1963. He was one of 4 children. Their parents were, spiritual leaders there in the Camden, Tennessee area. They were a well-respected family. Everybody knew them. This was kind of a small town, and they were just on friendly terms with everyone. Later on in life, Danny would meet the love of his life, Della Thornton. Della was born on March 24th, 1961. By all accounts, the 2 of them were madly in love with each other, head over heels, and Danny had recently proposed to Della. She accepted, and they were, set to get married. Danny Vine was a pretty successful guy. He was actually a mussel shell diver there in the Tennessee area, and he would go out, collect the shells. He had his own, shaker device, so that he could determine which ones were going to be of actual value, and then he would sell the shells to various places who would use them for various reasons. But this is something that would end up getting Danny a lot of money. And, everyone pretty much knew that about him. Everyone knew that about mussel shell divers in the area in general. Through all of it, there never seemed to be any kind of contentious relationships that Danny had with anyone. He didn't really seem to have any enemies, didn't make waves or ruffle any feathers, or he didn't get into any kind of trouble. Neither did Della. And so it kind of makes what happens, it just made it very surprising. It was the night of January 16th, 1991. The Camden, Tennessee home that Danny and Della shared together was in flames. This was noticed by passerbys. So 911 was called, firefighters arrived. The entire house was completely engulfed in flames, and it was in a very remote area where there were no other houses nearby and no danger of it spreading and causing a wildfire type situation. So they actually, given how far into this the fire was and how the house was basically already damaged, the firefighters made the decision to just let the fire burn itself out. And so it took several hours, but the house burnt out. The next day, the house was still smoking and it was smoldering, but the fire was obviously gone. The news had already kind of spread, and so people had called, Danny's mom and said, "Hey, do you know where Danny or Della are? Because their house burnt to the ground last night." And she's like, "What?" And so the family goes to the house along with, firefighters and investigators, and they're sifting through the rubble. I mean, this house is just gone. It is, there is everything on the inside is just completely turned to ash for the most part. The wood structure has completely collapsed. And as they're sifting through, one of the family members of Danny's notices bones. And then when the investigators look at them, they collect these bones and they end up finding several bones, including human teeth. They also found the remains of Danny's dog. So forensic anthropologists take all the bones that were collected. They did not get full skeletal remains, so there were a lot of parts missing, but the forensic anthropologists determined that these were 2 different sets of bones, and through a bunch of forensic work, they were able to determine that both of those bone structures that they found belonged to Danny Vine and Della Thornton. Now, the bones where they were found in a position with the couch. They were kind of basically mixed in with the springs of where the couch was, which told investigators that for some reason, Danny and Della didn't move from the couch, even though the house was completely engulfed in flames, which told them one of 2 things. One, they were strapped to the couch in some way, shape, or form, or they were tied up where they couldn't really get away. Or 2, they were already dead before the fire was set. Arson investigators determined that there was accelerant used in the house, and they found the main source of the accelerant had trickled down a wood staircase. They can actually trace the physical signs of the accelerant. And so they determined that this, in fact, was absolutely an arson. They also did have the almost intact skulls of both victims. And when they did x-rays of their skulls, they noticed several fragments, like, lead fragments in their skulls, which determined were bullet fragments. They did also recover, the outer portion of .38 caliber bullets at the scene. The inner workings of it were completely melted, but I guess the outer shell or frame was still kind of intact. So now they know for a fact that Danny and Della were likely both shot in the head, execution style, and just left there, and their bodies were then set aflame. Now, it was known that Danny at the time had roughly $30,000 in cash there at the house. He also owned a pickup truck with a trailer attached to the end, but when investigators were at the house, they noticed that that truck and that trailer were not there. Della's vehicle was there, and actually the keys were in the ignition. And so initially what they thought was that Della got home, noticed Danny in the truck, and so she just hopped into the truck and left. But then when they found the bodies, they realized that obviously wasn't the case. So Della may have been accosted at her car when she pulled up. So they were on the lookout now for Danny's truck. And when police found out that Danny was this mussel shell diver and made a lot of money that way, they did find out that Danny's trailer was full of mussel shells, like the night before, or the night of the fire, basically. And so that's when they began to think, was this a case of someone stole the mussel shells in order to get a shit ton of money? Well, a couple of days later, they do find Danny Vine's pickup truck and trailer. It is abandoned on the side of a road, and the trailer is completely empty. Not a trace of anything, not one single shell left behind. They dust the truck for fingerprints, for anything that maybe have DNA on it, but it is completely wiped clean. There is nothing in that truck that provided them with any forensic evidence. There was one family in the area that investigators would hone in on, just given their history of being criminals, and that was the Bruce family, in particular, the Bruce brothers. And that would be Gary, Robert, and J.C. Bruce. The brothers had a history of committing thefts and robberies. They had a history of committing violence. They also seemed to be very egotistical, as if they thought they ran this town, that they could do no wrong, that whatever they did, they would probably just get away with it. Like, these brothers would just go around town bullying whoever they wanted to bully, threaten whoever they wanted to threaten. They would just do whatever the hell they wanted. They told people, we run this county. This is our county, and we're going to get away with whatever we want to do. So police would go to them, to the Bruce house, and they denied having any involvement to do with this murder, arson, and theft. And their mother, whose name was Kathleen Bruce, she gave the boys alibis. She said that she was with them, that they were all at this pool hall playing pool. Every one of the brothers gave themselves alibis. And then later they were back at the Bruce house, which again, Kathleen Bruce said, yep, they were here with me. So they could not have done this, sorry. Well, that was not true, because a gas station attendant would go to police to say, I saw the Bruce brothers, all three of them, as a matter of fact, because they came to my gas station the night of the murder, and they filled up several gas containers with gasoline. As a matter of fact, Gary Bruce told the gas station attendant, quote, "It's going to be a hot time in Camden tonight," end quote. And then the fire happened. But then guess what? When investigators want to question the gas station attendant again, he suddenly's like, I don't want to say anything. He was essentially intimidated by the Bruce brothers. The Bruce brothers found out, and so they threatened him. The Bruce brothers would also contact Danny Vine's family and intimidate them, try to basically bully them. They were even seen following the Vine family members in their car. Like, the Bruce brothers would be tailing them, like, right on their bumper, all around town, like, just completely harassing them and trying to scare them into just, like, shutting up and going away. About a year later, because so many witnesses were just, like, not wanting to talk anymore because they were afraid of their lives and they were afraid of the Bruce brothers, one of J.C. Bruce's ex-girlfriends, her name was Sheila Bradford, she would arrange a meeting with the local authorities. They were going to meet at a diner. This was a very secret meeting that no one else knew about. And Sheila said she had evidence to suggest that the Bruce brothers were definitely responsible or involved with the murder of Della and Danny. She told the authorities there, her 15-year-old daughter, Christy, was there with her. She told authorities that, listen, I need protection for what I'm going to tell you because, they're going to hurt me. As they're at this diner and they're having this conversation, outside the diner, there's a big explosion that happens. And Sheila basically came to the conclusion that, oh my God, the Bruce brothers know what I'm doing. And this is a warning. They just blew up some building to send a message. 2 days later, Sheila is never seen from or heard from again. It doesn't sound like Sheila was ever able to provide the information she had because the explosion kind of stopped that meeting from happening, and then she vanished. She was supposed to go to, I guess, a family's house to hide, but apparently someone got to her. Who that person is unknown because to this very day, 2023, Sheila Bradford is still missing. The thought is that the Bruce brothers, in particular, probably J.C. Bruce, did something to Sheila in order to get her to shut up and not say whatever information she had. The likelihood is that he or they kidnapped her and probably killed her, and God knows where she is. That's the belief. There's no physical proof to say that's definitely what happened, but she just vanished completely. She was there one moment and then she was gone and never heard from or seen from again. So now another year goes by. Now we're 2 years after the murders took place. They have a big feeling that the Bruce brothers did this, but they don't have the physical evidence and the witnesses are just like not doing anything. They don't want to talk. That's when they find out through another anonymous tip that the Bruce brothers would do target practice at this nearby property. They would shoot their guns into trees. So police would then double confirm that the Bruce brothers did use this property to shoot into trees with their guns through other witnesses. So they got a warrant to search that area. They found a tree with a bullet hole in it. So they were able to cut that tree down, and then they were able to basically chop all the wood away, and they dug out a bullet, a .38 caliber bullet. They were able to take the bullets they found from the crime scene and the bullets they pulled out of the tree, and they lined them up forensically, and it was like not even an 80% match, 90% match. It was a 100% match that they were the exact same ammunition. But they still needed these witnesses to come back, to come forward again. And so what the authorities did was they set up a task force in order to take any witnesses that may want to come forward out of Camden, Tennessee, and bring them to a different area so that they could talk. It'd be like a secret private area where no one knew where they were going. And so that way they can get the information from the witnesses. Through all of this, they would come to the conclusion that the Bruce brothers were broke. They had no money, and they wanted money, and they wanted a lot of it. They weren't exactly like friends or acquaintances with Danny Vine, but this again is a small town, and they knew what Danny Vine did, and they knew how much money Danny brought in for the shells that he sold. So what they believe happened was that the Bruce brothers went to Danny Vine's home. They likely tied him up or something to the couch in order to steal whatever money he had and then take the shells. And that's when, just based off of like witness statements and timelines, they believe that Della got to the house after this was already happening. They noticed and then they grabbed her right from her car, brought her inside, and then both of the individuals were shot through the head and killed. And then they went and got gasoline and dumped it down the wooden stairs and around the house, and they lit the house on fire. So police at this point were now able to say they had the bullet evidence that many witnesses confirmed were shots, at the tree by the Bruce brothers that matched the exact ammunition used to kill both, the couple. They had now the gas station attendants' testimony that they were there that night, filling up gas tanks and stating it's going to be a hot night in Camden. And then I guess they were able to find witnesses that the Bruce brothers, or some of the Bruce brothers, had sold shells to certain, mussel shell buyers. So now the evidence was completely stacked up against the Bruce brothers. So they were indicted on the murders and arson and, theft. Apparently, before one of the trials, the court got a bomb threat that they, I guess, would probably discover was from one of the Bruce family members, again, to intimidate, but it didn't work. So I guess two of the brothers were arrested and they were, set to go to trial. Gary Bruce apparently went on the run for some time, but then they were able to eventually catch him and, bring him back to Tennessee. And so he would go on trial as well. Not only that, Kathleen Bruce, the mother, was also arrested and charged because she had lied deliberately, gave them a false alibi. So she would go to trial and she would actually end up getting 8 years in prison for that, basically for aiding and abetting. And then eventually all the brothers would go to trial and all three of them would be convicted of the murders. And they would be sentenced each to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And so the tale of the three brothers who felt they owned this town and tried their very damnedest to get people to shut up, while it turns out they would lose in the end. It sounds like the investigators did a really, really good job about just making sure to ignore the noise of the Bruce brothers trying to intimidate people and just focused on getting the evidence they needed to arrest them for this crime, and they were able to do it. And then you have the added sadness to the story. Not only do you have a double homicide, but you still have a missing woman. Sheila Bradford, like I said, still has not been found. The Bruce brothers, none of them have said anything about if they were involved in her disappearance. The likelihood is they probably were. Can't say that for a fact, but let's be real. She disappeared 2 days after she planned to tell police some incriminating evidence against them, and now she's gone forever. And where is she? Her family wants to know. Her daughter wants to know. Where is she? So, Sheila Bradford case is still open, and investigators, police there are still wanting to find out where she is. And so if anyone is out there that may have information about the whereabouts of Sheila Bradford, they would implore you to go forward to police. So, contact the Camden, Tennessee Police Department, Sheriff's Department. And if you have any information, please provide it. You could always report it anonymously. The Bruce brothers are in prison. They're not getting out. So you are far more safe now to tell them what you might know and help this family just find the answers and help them bring their loved one home. But that is it for this case, True Crime-A-Roonies. I hope you found it interesting, as usual. If you have tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this video, hello, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories here and over on TikTok, so please feel free to subscribe to me here, give this video a like. The link to my TikTok is in the link tree in the description of this video below. Please feel free to follow me there if you want to. I tell numerous true crime stories over there every single week. Next, if it's a case you want me to cover, please email me. The email's listed below in the description. Just email me the name of the person, where it happened, when it happened, and then I will eventually add it to my list. I'll cover that case at some point. I just can't tell you when because I picked them out randomly and I got close to 5,000 names on the list. Then next, if you want to support me in any way, I do sell merch, t-shirts, hoodies, a wine glass, stuff like that. So feel free to support me if you want to. We do ship internationally. The link is also in the link tree in the description below. But that is it for this video. True Crime, a Rooney, Dooney, Dingleberry, Dong, da dong dongs. Dong, 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 dongs. True crime, a Rooney, Dooney, Dingleberry, dong, 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 dongs. No, that doesn't have a good flow to it. That is this, flow? Gross. Why did I say flow? Ugh. Flow, am I right? What am I talking about? Fuck. I don't even know. Anyway, how are you? Kind of late to ask that question since it's the end of the video. Are you answering? You probably shouldn't be answering. I can't hear you. Stupid. Dumb. Anyway. Ow. Always end on a strong, confident note is what I have never said before, but I'm saying now. This is confidence in mass, is what you're seeing. Are you still here? Okay. Okay, bye.